Chapter 10, Mainstream Jazz, roughly 1950 to present. This is a little different from the previous chapters in the book in that this is kind of a catch-all chapter for artists who have spent the bulk of their careers playing in what we call the mainstream. Now, within that mainstream, you've got swing, you've got bebop, you've got cool school, you've got musicians who cross over into a lot of different genres. But we got them here because they kind of enjoyed for lack of a better term, mainstream career. Back in chapter 4, I mentioned the great Count Basie and how he backed up singers. Here it is. Basie with Frank Sinatra. Doesn't get any better. One of the greatest live albums of all time. Sinatra at the Sands with Count Basie. And you have a link to the tune Come Fly With Me, which is really, really cool recording. I recommend this whole album to you. Check it out. It's really good. And then we get into, and you notice I changed it here, a few of the people who made and make, because they're still alive and singing. Lady Gaga, overlooked, I think, as a jazz singer. She has a lot of talent. She works a lot with Tony Bennett, or has worked in the past with Tony Bennett. Tony's still alive, singing in his early 90s now. Just amazing. You have a link to his MTV special, which was kind of a thing that sort of relaunched him to the world, except jazz fans went, he never went anywhere. How did this MTV relaunch him? But this was a long time before you guys were born, back when MTV used to show music, but it's still a great recording. It's classic. Sarah Vaughan could easily be in chapter 4 and chapter 5. And honestly, in chapter 7, some too. But she's here because she's more of a mainstream artist and she enjoyed a broad career. Nat King Cole, pioneer in the swing era of the 1940s, but he goes on to be a brilliant singer who fronts more commercial styles of music with kind of a studio orchestra. Brilliant, brilliant, talented man. Ray Charles. Ray Charles is just Ray Charles. There's nothing else you can say about him. Nobody sounds like Ray Charles except Ray Charles. You've got some great dig deepers here. In particular, I recommend the movie Ray to you. It's one of the best biopics out there. My favorite album of all time, Ray Sings, Basie Swings. It's just a masterpiece. Check it out. Another great Tad Hirshhorn photograph. That's at the North Sea Jazz Festival. I love that one. I love this picture too. There's the great Art Tatum, Earl Garner, the guy we're talking about in this section, and Count Basie. That's a powerhouse trio of piano players right there. Oscar Peterson, another great pioneering piano player. And then Bill Evans. You met Bill in chapter 6 with Miles Davis, the album Kind of Blue, but he goes on to front a series of really important jazz trios where the piano is the prominent character, except not always, because for a brief time he had a trio with this guy right here, Scott LaFaro, who was a groundbreaking bass player. We didn't talk about him in chapter 8, but he actually plays on the album Free Jazz with Ornette Coleman. In his 20s, really cut his chops, though, with Bill Evans in this trio. And sadly, just 2 weeks after this record was made, he was killed in a car accident. So their relationship was very short, but it was incredible. Conversely, here's Paul Motian, still playing as of 2020. Just an amazing musician. The Village Vanguard, highly recommended as a club there. You've got Gloria Step from the album Live at the Village Vanguard. Some of the best live albums ever made right there. George Shearing, British Invasion 20 years before the Beatles. Really cool guy. And then I give you a laundry list. And again, these are all active links. For example, Johnny Costa. Johnny Costa was the piano player on Mr. Rogers. So if you've ever gotten to watch Mr. Rogers, Spotify's a little slow lowing, but this is one of my favorite of Johnny Costa's albums. But he played for Mr. Rogers for well over 20 years. Really cool dude. These are all active links. You can check them out. Stan Kenton fronted a big band at a time when big bands were breaking up. He was making his bigger. You've got the band's theme song, Artistry and Rhythm. It's a tune they reinvented over and over and over again. This is the first recording of it. Kenton was also very committed to education, and you can see here this is a camp that he ran with all the musicians. It's a who's who of players. And I just left the other side of this because this was just a club listing for random week when this ran. I just thought that was really cool. Again, lots of great links. Hey, Stan Kenton's Christmas album. Check it out. It'll part your hair. Maynard Ferguson, loud, high trumpet player, got to start with Kenton, went on to form his own big band. Again, a guy really committed to education. Clark Terry, same way, very committed to music education. Really fascinating guy. Lots of good links here. J&K, J.J. Johnson and Kai Winding. These guys both played on the album Birth of the Cool, and they went on to have wide careers as bebop players, as cool school players, as fusion players. Kai in particular worked with the Playboy Club and helped found the Playboy Jazz Festivals, and you can read about that here, and he's writing note to Maynard Ferguson there, which is pretty interesting. And again, laundry list of players. Click on any one of them. They're all incredible. Joe Pass. Joe Pass is the New Testament of guitar playing. You know, if Charlie Christian's the Old Testament, Joe Pass, Wes Montgomery, they're the New Testament. He made a series of albums called Virtuoso. What else can I say? Roy Clark and Joe Pass play Hank Williams. A lot of people think this is a joke, and it's absolutely not. Check it out. It's the last album he made. It was just a few weeks before he died, and it's an incredible record. Some great videos here for you as well. And again, a ton of Dig Deepers. Check them out. Really, really neat. Latin jazz. This is a very short section in this mainstream jazz chapter. This could be a 400-page book, and trust me, there are a number of them out there. There's some active links to several of them. But we do need to talk separately about Latin jazz. We've touched on it in chapter 4. We touched on it in chapter 5. We touched on it in chapter 3, actually, with Jelly Roll saying the Spanish tinge. You know, it's in jazz from the very beginning. But here it's branching out into something different. One of the pioneers is Tito Puente, his great tune, O Ya Come Va. You've got a great recording of that. He recorded it a number of times. Toots Thielemans, here's a Belgian guy, but he spends time in Brazil and records Brazilian music on harmonica and guitar, which is pretty hip. Again, tons of great links here. And then a very selfish section, because I'm a huge fan of what are called the cult vocalists. In particular, this guy, Dave Frischberg, and he had two colleagues, Bob DeRoe and Blossom Dearie, who did a series called Schoolhouse Rock. You've got links to some of their pieces here, and they did tons of stuff on their own. Mose Allison from Tippo, Mississippi, fellow Mississippi son there. Tom Waits. How do you describe Tom Waits? You just got to hear it. My friend Charlie Wood, a great cult vocalist from Memphis, Tennessee, who now lives in London. And I got to do an album with him, so Your Humble Author did include a link there to some stuff that we did. So that's just my personal thing. If you ask me what's in my car, this is what I'm listening to more times than not. So there you go. That's chapter 10, mainstream. It's kind of a catch-all, but a lot of good music there.